Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. Scott Linden here. Glad you could join me. As the season, winds down for some of us, it's already wound all the way down for many of you. But if you're still doing it, more power to you. Maybe I'll see you out there. Great show in store for you. Orvis-endorsed bird hunting guide Ryan Auney talks wild birds and Wyoming. Among other things, we'll talk dog handling, of course, hunting strategies and tactics, and maybe some Wyoming-specific questions. One of my favorite states, maybe because I don't get to spend near enough time there. But we got something for everybody else as well. Your training goals for the off-season, I asked that question, and you gave me some great answers. And then in our Handle It segment, another energy supplement that I like that may help your dog as well, whether it's for the rest of this season or next. So stick around right here on the Upland Nation, brought to you by landtrust.com, Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food, MidwayUSA.com, TrulockChokes Tubes, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, Pointer Shotguns, and Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products. Well, not getting out much more until the end of the season, but am getting to the range, working on next year and the challenges I faced quite often this year, including low quail shots, low going away shots. The quail vexed me over and over this season, so I am starting with that, and then I'll be working on a few other versions of clay target imitations of bird shots. But that's the one, and maybe you know this, if you've hunted, especially valley quail, scale quail, Gambel's quail in particular, they'll get up just high enough to clear the shrubs. They don't want to get up much higher because the Cooper's hawks will get them. So learning to shoot at about 2, 3, 4 feet off the ground when it's safe is the biggest challenge I'm facing these days. It's all about getting your face down on the stock, and that is not easy on those low shots. So doing that at the clays course on those bounding rabbits, for example, and then there are a couple places where I can set up in a spot where the targets are going straight away. And then, of course, with my new target thrower here, can do some of that pretty easily. What about you? Well, I asked on social media, now that the season is winding down, what will you be working on come training season? I meant for your dog, and that's pretty much the answers I got. Lynn Glock, hey, I feel for you. Heel, which should have been done already. Yeah, I understand. Rick White talks about training his students to be more effective with their shotguns to avoid the look from their well-trained dogs. There you go. Yeah, so Rick's going to be training the humans. Just don't turn the collar up too high. Oh, my. Don Williams, looks like a utility test on the agenda for you. So duck search, yeah, that is probably, in my NAVD experience, the one that is the hardest to train for, simply because you need the right kind of water. So good luck on that. Eric Thompson, hit the table, clean up some trash, and polish up this little diamond of a dog. Yeah. Young dog, looking good. I know you had a pretty good season. I'm glad to hear that. John Todd, good luck with your utility test. David Klopp, you're in the same boat I am. Steadiness, a constant challenge. Bruce Vizinski, retrieving. Yeah, Travis Hampton, stop to flush, honoring and retrieving with my younger dog, which means you probably have an older dog, and that'll help quite a bit. Lots of great stuff here, stuff that's on my to-do list as well. Coco, 14 years old, Jack Leventree says they're going to work on a little R&R. Yeah, good on you. Keep up the good work, Coco. And finally, good luck to you, Paul Hageman. You're going to clear out your sinuses and improve your sense of smell since you're dogless for a while. Yeah, probably a good plan, and hope it works for you. The Upland Nation podcast is brought to you in part by Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food. You know, they have a wide variety of formulations depending on the life stage your dog is at, maybe the life stage you're at too, for that matter. a wide variety of options. You can learn more about them at ProPlansport.com. Take a look at the importance there. Lots of nutritional information there. Purina is at the forefront when we talk about dog nutrition. Amino acids, critical to muscle development, especially that time after the exercise to promote recovery. If you hunt 2 days in a row, that is essential. Learn more about that and the dog food at ProPlansport.com. And Pointer shotguns have been with us for a long time. Did you see the cover of Shotgun Sports magazine? Oh, yeah. One of those beautiful case-colored side-by-sides. Take a look at all of their models with all sorts of color choices. It's crazy to talk about the color choices we now have, at least at pointershotguns.com, from nickel, of course, traditional, and bluing, traditional, to the Cerakote green, bronze, and gray, and all those case colorings. Was talking with somebody about how that's done, and it's the master guy in the factory who takes that raw metal before it's, of course, put together into the gun, but it is made as a receiver, and then he takes that and dips it here and shakes it there and pushes it in and pushes it out. It's got to be hot, smelly, and very challenging, but the work is worth the result. Learn more at pointershotguns.com. Maybe it's my favorite state because I don't get there often enough, and I always have a good time when I do. It's Wyoming. And yes, there is some incredible bird hunting there. That's what we'll talk about with Ryan Awney. Ryan is Wyoming Wings and Waters, pro guide, Orvis-endorsed, and also, hey, Ryan, we're related a little. I hunted with some Tacoma Mountain dogs last weekend. Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast.
Yeah, hey, how's it going?
Good. I would imagine your dogs are as good as the ones I was behind last week. Tell me all about your dog string.
Yeah, so I got, like you just nailed on it. I got a Tacoma, my oldest dog, coming up on 8. Got her straight out of Tacoma Mountain setters, and she's a Patriot dog. Obviously, Patriot's been gone longer than 8, so she was artificial. But yeah, and then Patriot dog, and then she's double Patriot on both sides.
Nice.
And then let's see, I got 6 more. Six more setters. Most of them got that Tacoma string in them. Probably my number 2 dog comes from Paladin. I think I'm saying that right. Out of Mesquite Ridge Kennels. He's Oklahoma, I believe. Drove up northern Oklahoma, drove to Kansas and down in Oklahoma to get him. And Paladin was a Patriot son.
Wow.
So yeah, but fairly closely related there. And I really enjoy the way those Tacoma Mountain dogs run.
Oh, so do I. And in fact, I was hunting with the owner of Tacoma Mountain Sunrise.
Oh, okay.
So we had a lot of fun. We talked a lot of dogs, and including those Patriot dogs. Most of the dogs my other friend had were Patriot dogs. So anyway, good time. We don't want to go too deep into that world, or everybody would fall asleep. But
yeah.
You are kind of partial to the setters. I know you got a little bit of everything else, but you do like those setters. Is there a particular reason you like them out there in Wyoming?
Yeah, you know what? I always find that the setters have they have a good range to them on how I like to work. I got a lot of 150 to 250 yard dogs, and I really like that. And I like their noses. Wyoming can be fairly dry. They seem to be good dogs in the heat for the most part. Every dog's different.
Mm-hmm.
But, in poor scent conditions, the setters tend to have a fairly good nose still. Which
Really?
I really enjoy. Yeah. And then, their ability to retrieve naturally is okay. They don't have a great reputation for it, so some might even suggest that it would be poor. But I don't have that top priority on my list, the retrieving. I want guys to enjoy their time, find birds, and so I want my dogs to find them a lot of birds, hold hold their points, and be really steady. And setters are so trainable for that.
Yeah.
To have a good nose and be really steady. And the retrieving is bottom of my list for what I do, and I can always train that into them, or I can go pick up the bird for the client. So
Or you could hunt with a wire hair guy who did all the retrieving on all the pointed birds by the Toccoa dogs.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
And it was so funny because they figure out what's going on, and Flick's heading for that down bird, and they say, "Oh, go ahead, we're off," and they're hunting again already.
Yep. I've actually had that happen a few times. I've had some hunted my Springer. I can't exactly remember why I had my Springer out.
Funny, I hear that a lot from Springer owners.
Yeah, but I love her. I love the Springer for the pheasant hunting, but for whatever reason, chukar hunting, I had her out once, and the setters went and found all the dogs, and then trying to keep the Springer on heel when there's a down bird.
Yeah.
And by the time the Springer went and got the bird, it was like the setters were already out there 250 yards on point on another covey. So
that's
different dogs for different reasons. I got one Springer, and I actually have 2 shorthairs as well. So
yeah, I was going to ask about the crop-tailed dogs you have. Any particular reason you kind of went over to the dark side there?
Yeah, there is. The versatility is probably one of them.
Yeah.
I nailed on the range of the setters and the hot nose, and their trainability just to be really steady is incredible. And the short hairs I've found, I only went to the dark side, let's see, 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So not, I haven't been in the short hair world that long, but I find that the short hairs are a lot more stubborn to train.
Yeah.
They're very natural with their ability to find your birds and their drive and their want and determination to just go hunt.
Mm-hmm.
But they can be fairly stubborn. And when you're doing your steps, your dog training steps, I find that they're a little more stubborn than the setters.
Well, you just used a word I've never heard before when in dog training, and you said steps. What do you mean by that? And let's take a few steps together. Help me with the way you train a dog.
Yeah, so steps as in there's multiple different steps as it when you get a dog from a puppy. A lot of it is just your how I start. A lot of just house commands to start. Just get the puppy used to being with you and the other dogs, and not all my dogs come in the house, but you still use house commands.
Sure.
I do at least. So start with that, getting the puppy familiar with your area, and then you start going into the bird hunting world. And I do some bird introduction. Always start there.
Yeah.
Maybe grab a pigeon or a chukar, or buy some birds and let the puppy chase them around and all that. And then you start getting into the steps of the whoa training. You actually start not only introducing a bird, but you get them starting to be steady to that bird. And I love to do a lot of, I start as a puppy, doing some sight points, just because they're used to seeing that bird from the bird introduction, and maybe then starting to wall them by sight and all that. And then I go into steps of actually starting to maybe hide birds, let them find it, and from there go put them on some planted birds.
Yeah.
Whether it be in a I'm spacing the name, the bird launchers.
Sure.
So whether it be in a bird launcher, let them go find a bird. And a lot of times my steps are just once they hit that scent and really key into that scent, I'm launching that bird.
Yeah.
They don't have to be perfect as a puppy.
Hmm.
You know, it's like that, oh, they just turned on a scent, launch that bird. You know,
What?
because they start creeping into that launcher, and you can start having problems with them just getting close to that launcher. Maybe the launcher makes noise and they're scared of it, or maybe vice versa. They're not scared of it, but they start figuring out what that launcher is, and instead of going on point, they just go up to it. And
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I recommend for a lot of people. That's the closest simulation we're going to get to a wild bird, if you want to call it that. The real key, here's one that's been vexing me, and I'm writing on this for somebody right now, and that is, okay, we teach whoa as basically an obedience command. You know, hey, you're running along or you're headed for the highway, I say whoa, you stop. So that's one thing. And then you're in the field and you smell a bird, and you stop naturally. How do you combine the two? What's that key juncture where the dog is on point, but you know and he knows, I really want to break this point and crash in? Is that when you use whoa, if you use it at all?
So for me, as they're young and during my training,
Mm-hmm.
I do use whoa during that situation, you know,
Yeah.
on both situations. So it's you kind of hit on an interesting point. I never really thought of it like that, but yes, in both situations, I would use whoa. You know, I see them trying to creep into, you know, turn on a scent really hard, and I'm 100 yards back.
Yeah.
And I see
Yeah.
him creeping in, and I'm like, hey, Doug, whoa, you know, and get him, and get him to whoa up during training, definitely. And I like to teach them, along with whoa, a stim, a light stim.
Yeah.
You know, a level that every dog's different. To go back on the stubbornness of the short hairs, a couple of my short hairs, I have to stim them on like a medium 4 even, and to get them to whoa. And
Yeah.
I tell them whoa as they're young. I get them used to the whoa along with the stim.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that way, when I turn to the field on wild birds and I'm actually in a guiding situation, I yell whoa, all the birds flush
Yeah.
before the guys can get a shot, and
Yeah.
I look like a jerk. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, hey, by the way, you get used to that. Take my word for it.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But
yeah.
no, so that's what I use whoa for, both situations, and I really like to stop using whoa as they get older, and I see them, if they do start to creep a little too early,
Mm-hmm.
I hit them with a low stim
Righto.
and don't even say anything.
Yep.
And you know, it's surprising how many guys you can, oh, for the lack of a better term, fool, even though I don't want to say I'm fooling guys, but it's surprising how many guys you can actually fool just thinking that you're just so in control of the dogs without saying anything.
Yeah.
I've been told that you don't even say anything and the dogs just work perfectly and you're so in control of them and you don't even whistle or anything. And they're like, how do you do that? I'm like, you know, they always go through the training where they start learning that, you know, commands through the collar.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, I'm becoming a real believer in what I'll just call stealthy field work.
Mm-hmm.
I use the tone and the vibrate and
Yep.
you know, all the capabilities of the collar that are quiet. This year in particular, it seems like every covey I've come to has been really jumpy from the beginning to the end of the season. So that
Yes.
you know, maybe that got us into 3 more shots this season, but it's 3 shots I wouldn't have got otherwise.
Exactly. Well, and then when you're in a situation like I am, where guys are relying on those 3 extra shots, because
Yeah.
you know they're paying money for those 3 extra shots, essentially. So you kind of have to learn to be a pretty stealthy hunter, which is, so in some situations, kind of a bummer because people want to chat and get to know you, and even if they do know you, they want to, you know, how's life been and all that, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, tell me about this mountain here and all this, and which is wonderful. It's a great part of being outdoors and watching the dogs work, but at the same time, there's something to be said about that stealthy hunting.
Well, that's the challenge being a pro guide. You gotta stage manage that stuff.
Yes.
Hey, you're listening to the Upland Nation podcast, everybody. I'm Scott Linden, your host. That's Ryan Awney, Orvis-endorsed guide out of Wyoming, living in a place that I love in the summertime, but I hate in the wintertime. Cody, Wyoming. You ever get over to the Buffalo Bill Museum?
Yes, I have a few times.
Wonderful place.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. A lot of the guys that come,
Oh yeah,
they really enjoy taking, if they come for, say, 4 days, they might do 2 days hunt, take a day off, 2 days hunt.
yeah.
And during that day off, they really enjoy just spending the day there. It's definitely big enough where you can spend a whole day.
Oh, easily. And if you like guns, there's an incredible gun collection there.
Yes.
But let's get back to the hunting in Wyoming in particular. It's not on the everybody's bucket list as a hunting destination. I've had a heck of a time there over and over and over again. And well, why don't you just tell us what kind of hunting you're doing there and what kind of habitat you're going to?
Of course, yeah. So Wyoming is really neat in the diversity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be the only thing that's got above every other state is the sage-grouse hunt.
Yeah.
By far, no doubt, plenty of evidence supporting it. It's the number one state to hunt sage-grouse. But that season is so limited. It's like, what do you do outside of it?
Mm-hmm.
And also, they're a species of concern. So it's like you can't just overflood Wyoming with sage-grouse hunters because if they're a species of concern, it's like what species do we have out there that's not of concern that we can hunt a lot of? And that would be probably number 2 would be the chukars in Wyoming. We can have fairly decent chukar years, especially in the Bighorn Basin of the state, which is the in between the Absaroka, Yellowstone, the Absaroka Mountains, and the Bighorn Mountains in the northern part of the state.
Mm-hmm.
It can be fairly good chukar numbers. You're hunting not much grass. There's some cheatgrass hills there's a lot of grazing in Wyoming, so that they graze down. There's not much grass left, so that you're really looking at more limited grass country and a lot of sagebrush country and steep, rocky hillsides, canyons, everything you would think chukars, steep and rocky.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere a devilbird would live, that's Wyoming. The Badlands of Wyoming, thin habitat can even have some chukars in it.
Yeah, in fact, I was struck at how similar that habitat was to everywhere else I hunt chukars. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you were just dropped down, you wouldn't know that you were in Wyoming per se. What about Huns and Sharpies? Are you chasing many of those?
Yes. So the sharptail hunting isn't as known as, say, the Dakotas or Montana,
mm-hmm.
and same as the Huns. But the sharptail hunting on the eastern part of the Bighorn Mountain Range, so Buffalo, Sheridan area, can have fairly good numbers in good wet years, it seems, where the grass has grown a lot. And there is a good amount of Huns over there, but the Huns are weird in Wyoming. So there are a lot of Huns in Wyoming in the middle of the prairie, where in Montana, you're hunting the edges of farm fields.
Yeah.
Still in the prairie, but on the edges and all that. In Wyoming, you can be out in the chukar country, 50 miles into the desert. Even.
Yeah.
And there's just Huns littered in there.
Well, that's
so it's really unique.
It is, but less so than you might think. I have had that experience in 3 other states in the last 5 years.
I've been told that, and I don't know if it's changing or I just wasn't as knowledgeable as I thought on Huns, because I admittedly don't get to hunt other states all that often.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I think your first theory is correct. I think that the Hungarian partridge population is evolving in some way.
I believe it.
So what are most of your trips? Are they for one or the other, or is it a mixed bag? Or tell me about a typical day in the life of an Orvis-endorsed guide.
Yeah, so a lot of the hunters that come out, they do that typical, well, just take me to where the birds are. I don't really care what they are.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of that. So, and that would probably be Huns and chukars, and probably be in the early season before they get pushed around and they're hunted, and predators get them and all sorts of things. But I would say not the more so the Huns even, and that would just because a lot of the people that want to come, they don't want to put in the work. They like and don't want to diss on anyone, because I have some amazing people that come out that are in great shape and all that, but they know their capabilities, and it's hard to justify paying good money for just having to kill yourself up and down mountainsides all day long. So with that said, I would say a lot of guys are like, well, if there's a good Hun population on like a flat cliff or somewhere, just take me there. But take me to where the birds are. So if I have to put in the work, I have to put in the work. And I tell guys the same, every single person I get, I tell them the same thing. And it's really, well, if you want to go to where the birds are, usually we have to put on the miles in the truck and on our legs. So you're putting in both. We got to get to the middle of nowhere, and then when we're in the middle of the nowhere, we most likely will have to put on those leg miles as well. So
one of the things, I was writing a piece for somebody a while back, and I somehow came across a reference to pheasants in Wyoming. Down there, maybe I want to say in the southeast corner-ish, that general area. Is that a real thing, or are those all planted birds that the state's putting in there?
So Wyoming's also unique. Going back to that, the diversity thing is, there's a lot. Okay, excuse me. I'll start over. There's not a lot. There's a decent amount of purely wild pheasants in Wyoming. There are some planted areas, that they release pheasants, and you buy a little. I'm not 100% positive because I only do wild bird hunting, but I think you buy a little permit for. Sure. Like one of them's called the yellowtail, and you have to buy a little yellowtail permit, and they tell you what days they're releasing birds. Oh. So you could expect more and all that. And I do a lot of there's some public land pheasant hunting, but a lot of it's going to be on rush and olive creek bottoms, and we get some cornfields, but our cornfields are kind of hard to hunt. You'd want it cut most likely, and then they all move to the rush and olive creek bottom. Yeah. Rush and olives, cattails, willows, usually on creek bottoms is your best pheasant hunting around here. As long as the farmer doesn't plow road to road, ditch lines with rush and olive still in it. So that noxious weed is very important here. Yeah, as far as pheasants go.
Let's hear it for dirty farming.
Yeah, dirty farming. Yep. So no, even around Cody area, Cody to Thermopolis is mostly prairie, but as you get around Cody and around Thermopolis, there's some farming, and same as every single town in the Bighorn Basin here, Basin, Grable, Lovell, Powell, they all have some farming and some dirty farming, and they all have a decent amount of pheasants. This year especially was a good year for pheasants. So, and in Wyoming, good year. Yeah. If you go out with a couple guys, and the limit is 3. If you go out with a couple guys and put up, 12 roosters and each guy gets a limit, that would be a really good day. Oh, it's not like you're putting up 100 birds or anything, but these are, again, purely wild birds. So,
well, my experience has been with all of those, and had a wonderful time out there. But to a degree, those birds are they're in a little slightly different habitat, or we don't get enough experience on one or the other of them. I remember seeing I was just exercising a dog outside of Sheridan at a reservoir there one day, and there was a covey of sharptails in the Russian olives. They were perched in the tree.
I believe it.
And you know,
It's
maybe
kinda
they
weird,
were
but
maybe they were pushed there or something like that. I've had that discussion with a lot of guys lately. But what are some of the bigger hunting strategy challenges you face when you're after your primary birds, chukars?
yeah, so probably the biggest hiccup in the day would be that well, the typical chukar thing
Yeah.
is that you can catch them in the flat where guys are more than willing to walk, and me included, and they run uphill, or they run out in front of your dog and then fly downhill before you get to them. And so when you think you got them pinned out in the flat or something, they find a way to, they know their escape, and they find a way to go back to their name of being the devil bird.
Yeah.
And so that's really the big thing here. And I would venture to guess, in my experience in other states, that's really the main bummer of chukars, but that's also the thrill and the fun of it too.
So this year I have been working on the sneakiness aspect of chukars in particular, but it's also held true for the few Huns I've shot this year, and also for some valley quail. And that is, dog goes on point, probably uphill from you, who knows, it doesn't matter. But at some moment in time, you have to decide, well, where am I going to approach? Where's the covey? How am I going to approach that covey? Do you have a kind of a standard tactic for how you do that? And then I'll share some of the things I think I've learned.
Yep, of course. So there's a few different things. If I was actually hunting myself, my main hunting partner is, even though he's getting older, is my father. He still gets around in those hills fairly decently, and we kind of have a connection where we can just look at each other and do some hand signals, and we know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so, the hand signals might be like, oh, there's a dog on point. I'm going way up and around and coming down on them. And you go into the covey, but go slow, because it's going to take me a minute to, and that really, because when the dog's on point and they're looking uphill, those chukars aren't holding.
Yeah.
90% of the time they're moving uphill in front of that dog. And I can't go towards the dog and uphill. I have to sneak attack way around and huff and puff to get way above them, say all the way to the top of the hill probably.
Yeah.
And then come down, and then suddenly when I get to the top, hey, the dog's still down there 200 yards, but hey, all the birds are right here.
Yeah.
And so that would be my tactic when I'm actually guiding. A lot of times I guide a little different. I know a lot of guys like to chit chat and walk together, and maybe walk a little bit behind your shooter, so just for safety purposes. But a lot of times I tell them, we have a little meeting, a little powwow to start the day, and I'll tell them, hey, it might be we're going to use a lot of hand signals. These birds, it's November now, say these birds have been a little wild, and I'm going to guide a little different, and I'm going to use a lot of hand signals, and I might be a couple hundred yards from you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean to follow me. It will mean I always want you to go in towards the dog, because the dogs got the scent. The dogs are going to, but I'm going to hustle up and get out in front of these birds and above these birds. Now, I've had a lot of situations that, as far as actually getting some birds in the bag, it works. Unfortunately, it's not the best for just videos or even a mental picture of everything that happened, because the guy sees the dog work and everything, but a lot of times what happens is over this little rise, suddenly chukars are flying at him, and I'm like, hey, they're coming. And so he doesn't get to watch the full thing happen. And it was successful in the fact that it worked, and the birds flew right downhill to him, but you don't get the whole picture of dogs on point. Oh, they're scurrying 20 yards in front of you. Oh, there's one that flew. Oh, the covey's flying. You don't get to see everything happen. It's just more like suddenly we sneak attacked them, or I snuck around and
Yeah.
flushed them to the guy, and suddenly it worked, but it's not the prettiest picture memory for him. So.
Well, and to that point, what I figured out a lot of times now is I have to use the terrain. I have to hide when I'm moving up on the top of them. So if there's a knob in between me and the covey, I'm going to use that. I'm going to get behind that. I'm not going to crawl on my hands and knees very often, but I've used big boulders and cliffs and other things just so that maybe I can get another 5 or 10 steps on the birds before they see me.
Of course. Yep. That's a great tactic.
Yeah.
I use that as well. And then my number one tactic, but it's always a bummer because you got to walk back up. You got to huff and puff back up to the truck unless you're running 2 vehicles, but or somehow you get a ski shuttle out or a lift shuttle out there. But hunting downhill.
Yeah.
Just hunting straight downhill on these. If there's an area that I know chukars are usually at, it's all wild chukar hunting, so you don't know exactly where the covey's at that day, but you have a good idea. You come straight down on them.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of hunters, 50 yards apart, and maybe even 80 yards apart, and then me in the middle or something. The dogs going straight down, zigzagging on, and they really just feel like they have nowhere to go. And a lot of times they just hold until you walk right into them. Unless
I've got the gun up, and then they fly downhill.
Yeah. Well, that was another thing I was going to hit on, though, is even if they do hold, though, they're going to fly. It's going to be those low straightaway shots, so you got to be careful of the dogs.
Yep.
And they're going to fly low, straight away, and down the hill. And if you want to go chase them again, if it's a big covey, there they went another mile down the hill. They can just set their wings and go. And you're looking up and you're like, well, the truck's way up there, and they land all, So it's a good tactic for maybe one flush or whatever.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, you're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. That's Ryan Awney, Orvis-endorsed guide out of Wyoming. Ryan, you'll be back in a moment. Everybody else, open up your ears and listen to these commercial messages. First, from landtrust.com. Now, we're talking here about hunting wild birds on public access ground, and that's wonderful, and I love it. Hey, that'll be the next book. But in the meanwhile, if you want a place that you know is going to work and that you know you'll have access to it, and exclusive access to land that is managed for wildlife as well as ranching or farming. That's the whole idea. It's kind of like an Airbnb for bird hunters. Go to landtrust.com. Learn more about how it works. It's a DIY option that will allow you to plan ahead, know you've got exclusive access, and that is the key. 1 day, 2 days, more than that, landtrust.com. Learn more about them right there. And when you're shooting at those birds, of course, your odds are better when you got good choke tubes in there. TrulockChokes.com is where I start my search for new choke tubes. The highest quality materials, the most creative and effective engineering, a lifetime warranty, satisfaction guarantee. You name it, they've got it. Whether you need target chokes, specialized game bird chokes, or anything else, learn more about them and what they have to offer you in the way of improved shooting at TrulockChokes.com. And welcome back, Ryan Awney, Orvis-endorsed guide out of Cody, Wyoming. Boy, I had a day or two on that South Fork of Shoshone a few years back. I know you do some fishing guiding as well down there. Just out of curiosity, what are the waters you're working on most?
Yeah, the Shoshone, there's the North Fork, the South Fork, and the main Shoshone. That's the tailwater that's below the Buffalo Bill Reservoir that runs right through Cody towards Powell. And then even the Bighorn River towards Thermopolis fishes kind of like the famous section up there in Montana
Yeah.
as well. Nice big fish. The Shoshone has the tailwater part has to my knowledge I believe it's still this way, the highest fish count per square mile in the state of Wyoming.
Well, I'll have to make a note of that.
Yeah, but the bighorn, but it doesn't fish like that always, so it's kind of interesting.
Not when I'm there.
No, it's because no one's there here in the winter. That's when it fishes like that. It's incredible right now. But
yeah, go figure.
In the summertime, it fishes like there's no fish in the river.
Yeah.
And then the bighorn's where we go for the big fish.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so. and they can be a lot of fun. I know I fished that bighorn downstream from you, I think, or maybe upstream. Now that I think about it, Montana.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it runs north, so
okay.
It's kind of weird thinking. It's kind of weird to think like that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then Yellowstone, of course, we run into Yellowstone, where just got permitted there starting last year, and it's treated as well. It's been really good. Lamar Valley.
Yeah.
And then even on the Yellowstone itself, there's some big, nice cutthroat on the Yellowstone River.
I learned how to Euro nymph on the Yellowstone. But
there you go.
But this is a podcast about bird hunting and bird dogs, so let's talk about that. Let's get practical here. You got a string of 10 dogs. You got to do things to keep them in good condition during, before, and after the season, even day to day. Do you have a conditioning program for off-season? Are you roading these dogs? Is there anything in particular you're doing when they're not hunting?
Of course, yeah. So some of the younger dogs during the off-season, they get conditioned by just training.
Sure.
Going back through those steps and, buying some chukars. You got to get in Wyoming, I think, going to say this wrong. I believe it's a Chapter 10 through the Game and Fish.
Some permit to have game birds.
Yeah, so the permit where you can actually have the chukars or so on, and you got to say where you're going to release them. They can't be next to the actual wild chukars that live there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's just the training for the younger dogs. The other dogs that have done it for years now. That the off season, February, March, April, it's really just running them.
Yeah.
Just on the road, driving a truck and running them, keeping them in condition. That's usually twice a week.
Okay. And how far do you go? I mean, how far do you think the dogs go when you're doing that?
I would imagine they're doing 20-mile days twice. Let's see, I think it's 2 off days ish. Every day is different depending on if I'm guiding a fishing trip or something like that. But I try to stick fairly consistent to run them, I would guess, about 20 miles or so.
Yeah.
And then they get a couple off days, and then they run 20 miles again.
Are they, what kind of a pace are they moving at for 20 miles?
About, I think I'm driving about 10 miles per hour.
So that, if I recall doing similar things, that's kind of a trot-ish, a little faster than a trot. Yeah. But it's not a balls to the wall, full out run.
And I've done that. Just like any athlete training, I feel like there's some need for that.
Yeah.
I'll go out on a day and I'll have a mile-long stretch on a road, and I'll kick them out, and I'll drive that road at 30, and they'll be right on that truck, chasing that truck right at 30.
Oh, they will.
And, yeah. I mean, maybe a little under, but I got a couple dogs that can really, really go. And they'll just full on sprint for a mile. And I feel like that's good conditioning for them, just like any athlete needs to change up their training routine.
Well, I don't. It's all.
I was just going to say, I don't add that all that often because I don't find that we're really doing that in the field.
Yeah.
How much sprinting do you need to do in the field?
Two different kinds of muscles, though, and a lot of folks really believe in that. What about foot care? Do you ever worry about blowing out pads or cracked nails or anything like that, especially in the chukar country you work in?
I do. I actually have a short hair that he really great dog, but he has this toenail problem that the vet thought they should just remove it and it would fix the problem, and it hasn't. And
Mm.
so I think he gets really sensitive on the pad.
Yeah.
And so after 2 hard days of hunting, he needs rest for 2 days, because if I do that third day, he'll run three-legged
Oh,
because
wow.
he's just so sensitive on that pad. So that's kind of a bummer for him. We're looking into ways to, not maybe cure it. I don't know if it's curable, but
Yeah.
to help manage it.
Do you put anything on their pads?
Yep, there's some cream I've used in the past, and but other than that, I personally don't boot my dogs.
Yeah.
From a puppy, they're out there running in the chukar country, unbooted and everything. And I think my theory, and I'm not saying I'm right or I'm wrong, but my theory is kind of like a construction worker always using his hand. If he always used gloves,
Yeah.
he wouldn't have conditioned hands.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have the calluses and all that. And so that's my theory,
Yeah.
is that if I'm running them as puppies and they're running all the time, they have nice calloused over paws and the pads, and they don't have to worry
Yeah.
about it as much. And I feel like there's some truth to it, because I really that short hair's the only issue I've really ever had.
Well,
The toenails stay fairly trimmed just from me running them
sure.
twice a week, and then usually in the season they're really conditioned. By the time the season comes, I can get 3 or 4 days out of
Wow.
them fairly easy. So they stay fairly conditioned, and the trimming on their nails
Mm-hmm.
is done just by the land
Yeah,
for the
truly.
most part. I trim their nails once or twice a year, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And so, again, not saying I'm right or wrong, but it's worked for me so far, and I've never really had any pad issues. They don't rip their pads. They don't seem too sensitive. It's just
Yeah.
that one dog. And I honestly don't even think it was the land we were running in that did it.
No.
He had, when I got him, the breeder showed me his paw and said he ripped his toenail hair on the kennel, and it shouldn't be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now I think it's been a problem, because that same toenail, when he runs, has been ripped further and then ripped into the
Ew.
pad,
Ow.
and
Ew.
so
Yeah.
now it's just been fully removed and can't grow back.
Wow.
But he still gets sensitive there. So
Yeah,
I don't,
sure.
basing off the 9 other dogs and then the dogs I grew up with. I grew up with setters as well since I was a kid, and we never booted them.
Yeah.
So
What about what you put in their bellies before a hunt, during a hunt, and after a hunt? What kind of a strategic feeding and supplementing program do you use, if you use one at all?
yep. So I stick mostly to meals after the hunt.
Yeah.
Their full daily dose after the hunt, and you almost can't feed them enough.
Yeah.
I don't really listen to the bag. I do during the off season when they're only running twice.
Mm-hmm.
The days they run, they might get an extra cup and a half
Mm-hmm.
or so, and then their off days they're basically what the bag suggests, and whether it be per poundage. I think I use Purina Pro Plan, and I use the active
Yeah.
dog, so it's high, the 30-20.
Yep. Yeah.
And so I think for my setters and short hairs weigh about the same, and they're in that 40, 45. My biggest dog is about 50.
Wow.
Yeah,
I wish I could say that.
Do you have a bigger dog?
My wire hair is about 60.
Yeah, I believe it. Most people do. I have the quick, nimble type of dogs.
Yeah.
I have a couple setters that are about 38,
Oh
so.
my goodness.
Yeah, so
Wow.
I enjoy it like that. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, they, I think it's around 2.5 or
Yeah.
something. The
Dude,
active suggests at that weight, so I just
Yeah.
feed them the full 2.5 after they run.
yeah.
I find that before, and a lot of people disagree. I've told them this, and they disagree. They say now, well, they have no, they're burning through their muscle.
Yeah,
just like you go work out and you have no reserves in your body. Your body, they say you use your muscle when you're working out. Well, I'm sure it's the same with dogs, but I find that all they do is go use the bathroom every 10 minutes if they're too full when they go on.
Well, there's, again, go deep into the Purina website and you'll learn all the reasons not to feed in the morning. And that's one of the many. What about during the day? Do you offer them any energy supplements or snacks or anything in their water?
No, I am not using supplements. No.
Yeah. Well, it seems to work, and part of it, I bet a lot of it is that conditioning that's serious. I mean, most people will not run a dog probably 20 miles on anything but a really serious day in the field. So that's got to have a good positive effect. You hunt with a lot of people, whether it's your father, your clients, your friends, or yourself. Let's talk about the things that you see clients do that we probably ought to work on, whether it's shooting or strategy or anything else. What are the things that you just want to put your face in the palm of your hand?
Yep, of course. So I would say the number one is probably just going back to being the stealthy hunter.
Yeah.
A lot of guys just don't want to be a stealthy hunter. I say guys as in guys and gals. They just don't. They want to talk. Oh, and when they see the birds, it's there went all the birds. But right when they yelled,
there goes the last one.
There was 6 more that just flushed too, and they could have got up there. And so or dog's on point. And then the birds flew, and I'm just like, you just nailed it. I put my head in my palm, and I'm like, put my finger over my mouth, show the whisper sign, and I'm like, and then they sneak up there, and there's one left, and I'm like, see, I know you want to tell me but I'm always paying attention. I get the vibrate that the dog's on point, and I'm always looking everywhere. I know the dog's on point. And if I want you to know the dog's on point, I'm usually like maybe or like waving at you and use my finger and point at the dog. Yeah. And it works fairly well. But I just say to go along with this not being a stealthy hunter, a lot of guys just aren't aware of their surroundings.
What do you mean by that, though?
Right. Yeah. So of course So we go throughout the day, and maybe there could be multiple reasons, but let's just use one. Maybe it's their first time chuck rounding.
Yeah.
So you're kind of showing them the lay of the land drive-in, and say, this is the technique. So chuckers usually will be out here feeding. Here's some cheatgrass. Here's some cover. If it gets too hot, there's this hill that they like to run up, and it's fairly similar no matter where you're at. And then there's this canyon they'll fly down, or here's the down. And whether we're hunting here or 100 miles away, it's probably fairly similar. And you just show them kind of what their habits are and all that. And here we are hunting now, and you see that nice cheatgrass area, and it's their feeding time, and they're walking with their head down, but maybe they have to tie their bootlace or something, and then they put their earmuffs on, or now a plane flew by, I gotta stare at the plane. And now there's birds flying. Yeah.
Okay, so we're all guilty of that.
I am too.
But it is good that you pointed it out.
Yeah. So no, it's just good to kind of know, when you're out there hunting, to kind of know the habits of a chucker, and as you're going down, you're always aware of where the other, and just good to know for safety reasons. Where are the dogs, where are the people, and like, oh wait, not only are the dogs right there, but they're getting a little birdie, and there's that cheatgrass field that the guide was telling me about. maybe I'm gonna get ready here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's it's not a
Yeah.
huge deal. It's not that big a deal, but it's nice to be aware.
Yeah, and I like all the help I can get because I figure maybe even one or two more steps closer to that covey is going to help me hit a bird. What about the shooting side of things? Are there big errors that most of us make when we're approaching a pointing dog?
Of course. Yeah, so a huge one that I notice that makes me almost want to yell and stop it before the birds even get up
Uh-huh.
is you'll hear click, click, click. The guys will click off their
Yeah.
safeties
Yeah.
and they'll be pointing their guns
Yeah.
already basically already mounted right at the dog's head.
Yeah.
And I just want to, stop everything, don't even care about that cubby, and be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And,
So
not to be a jerk, but I mean, safety is always number one, and it's always good to just be, it's always fun to get birds, but it's good to be safe, and and there's really no need to be pointing a gun at a dog's head. Yes, the birds are going to be getting up there, but um, when you're shooting trap, or sporting clays, do you point your gun at the sporting clays machine and then, I mean, maybe they do, maybe that's how they shoot, but I'd prefer someone not to point right at the dog and then swing their gun through.
yeah. Okay. So be a little bit more situationally aware and to
Yep.
translate that to your firearms handling as well.
Yes, of course.
What about etiquette regarding the dogs? We see a dog on point, whether it's my dog or your dog or all three dogs or whatever. What do you find yourself having to do most often to square away your clients once they see that pointing dog? You have
Of
to
course.
traffic cop them in a direction or what?
Yeah, of course. I usually use hand signals again. Now that everyone's aware the dog's on point, it's going to be a lot of hand signals, like, or I'll get close enough where I can kind of whisper, be like, all right, go to the left and downhill and around the dogs,
Yeah.
and I'll go right into them. And the reason I like to go right into the point, one is I can tap the dog on the head to release them if I think we have birds running. And so I can slap my knee or tap the dog on the head, and that's a release. And then two is if a guy walks right into a dog on point, they're going to get a low straightaway shot right over the dog's head, which is just not smart to take, but it's hard to resist.
Yeah, we all gravitate to the dog when we should make an concerted effort to swing around the dog, right?
Of course, yeah. And, I've had people say, well, I'm really good at those low straightaway shots. I'm like, okay, well, perfect. Then go 15 feet to the left of the dog.
Yeah.
It's really just it's a safety thing to just, you hit on it, the etiquette for the dog and all that. There's just no reason to go right over the back of a dog. And if the birds get up and you're shooting 5 feet behind the dog's going to release. Even a really steady dog.
Oh, yeah.
You see it 9 times out of 10, those dogs get that flush, and they're at least, even a steady dog's at least kind of flinching up to the bird. It just doesn't seem too safe.
What is your expectation in the field, and what is your, to a degree, it would be your client's expectation too in terms of steadiness? When do you want a dog to break?
Yep. So believe it or not, I would feel like most people and I are fairly okay with a dog breaking after the flush.
Yeah.
So, it's a fairly normal thing. I'm okay with it. I do have dogs I work with that I get them fairly steady through the shot.
Yeah.
And then, the dogs I have a dog that is steady even after the shot. I have to really, that Patriot dog, literally have to go tap her on the head to finally release her. Even after the shot. And the bird is running down the hill wounded, flopping around, and she's not even releasing. So there's all sorts of arguments to why that's good and bad, and yeah. But what it is good for is the notorious popcorn flush, the chukars.
Yeah.
You got a dog that still hasn't, you shot twice, and the dog still hasn't broke. And you reload and take a couple steps, and another bird gets up.
Yeah.
And you shoot that, and another bird gets it. And then you can stand in one spot, and suddenly you have your limit in one spot, and you're like, wow, the dog never broke.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
But at the same time, there's plenty of bad reasons to, that you could have for the dog not breaking. I think it's fairly okay, and the clients would agree that, they find the birds, they're steady, they do great dog work, the birds flush, dog breaks, they shoot a bird or two. They're like, wow, that was a great dog work. They're They're like, oh, the dogs broke after they flushed. So I don't think I've ever had someone say that to me.
Isn't that funny? You never think about it from that regard. Yeah, most people are dazzled. The moment the dog hits the scent cone and stops, it's showtime.
Yep, exactly. And even if it's kind of, you get a dog that creeps a little bit and the birds get up, if they're in range, it seems like you've pretty much satisfied your customer. That you're like, wow, the number one key is to have a dog that hits that scent cone, locks up hard, and after that you walk in and the bird's flushed and you hit one, and it seems that like everyone forgets what the dog does after you're shooting. So
Ryan,
and that goes back to the retrieving thing. They all forget that the dog never even retrieved it. I went and grabbed it for you. So it seems like they're like, oh, wow, great dog work. And little do they know I went and picked up the bird.
No, they're still high-fiving, but that's all right, too. Ryan Awney, Orvis-endorsed guide. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. Let's cover a couple other things. This should be my number one question. I promise to work on this, everybody. What is it about chukar hunting that just gets your juices flowing?
Oh, it's just there's something thrilling about climbing up on top of those steep rocky hills, watching the chukars run right in front of you, and you can't do anything about it. And you get all the way to the top, and those dang birds, they fly right when you crest the hill, and they fly all the way down to the bottom where you started. And you're cussing up there and everything. You're like, all right, let's go back down and get them. Redemption time.
Well, it's absolutely true. There is something to be said for the frustration factor, and the places you go. I mean, have you ever? Give a moment here. Give me a thought on this, because I could talk all day about this, and next time maybe we will. But when you're up there doing that, what are some of the things you felt or seen that nobody else gets to see unless they're doing the same thing?
Oh, the first thing that comes to mind in Wyoming, and you've experienced Wyoming, is you climb that mountaintop chukar hunting, and even if you're not on the mountaintop, you can see for 100 miles. Yeah, literally 100 miles, and you don't see a building. You also don't see a tree
or another truck.
But you don't see another truck. You don't see it. It's just you and the countryside. You just feel like you're so small. The world's just huge. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, in fact, that's it. Yeah, we could wax philosophic all day on that topic. I remember a spot. It finally hit me. I was looking at 3 different states from that high spot.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And there's all of that. And then there's all the other stuff, the golden eagle nest and the old miners lean-to and things like that we find all the time. If you were to tell us to bring something along on our hunt that you almost always bring, unless you got distracted, that normally we wouldn't have in our vest, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question.
Could be a dog handling device. It could be, beef jerky.
Yeah, the main, that's a good question. The main thing that came to mind and why I paused was I kind of thought maybe everyone has it, but actually probably not. Maybe they do. It's the really strong wire clippers for snares.
Yeah. Cable cutters.
Cable cutters, that's it, yeah. And so the cable cutters is something that I don't think I've ever pulled out, but I always have it with. And I think I would assume, or I started to assume everyone's like that, but I don't know if they are. Maybe that's a good point to bring up, that it's smart to have that in the bottom of your pack, because a lot of people struggle actually flipping that snare off.
Yeah, you can't, especially the cables, the real snare traps. You cannot cut it most of the time with a standard pair of dikes, side cutters.
Right.
You need that specialized cable cutter, and it's a significant investment. I think mine were $50, but they work. Don't ask why. I'm not going to tell you that story, but they work. Well, and that is the kind of stuff that we need to know more about. So that cable cutters, and one more thing we should work on if we're going to be a good client for you. What is one more skill we should acquire, or one more ability we should have when we show up and you're going to take us hunting?
Yeah, so the main thing I tell people is just to really be in shape, because it's just not a preserve hunt at all. And so that would be the one thing. You show up and you can walk 5 to 10 miles up and down hills. Perfect. We're gonna have a great day anyways. But
yeah,
that'll really help. That's the number one thing. I don't really care how nice your gun is, what gun you show up with. I don't care the skills you show up with shooting wise. I mean, I do, but I feel like that's not all that important.
Yeah.
I find that most people really don't enjoy their time when they dang near die because they couldn't walk 2 miles up and down the hills. And so it's just weird. It's something you don't think about. I get the question all the time. They're like, what do I bring? I'm like, just the typical, plan for hot weather, cold weather, have the appropriate footwear, a good pair of boots. That would be a good one to add to that. But that would be the one that not many people think about. That's kind of the number one.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wait, but I should probably, we're gonna walk, right? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, all of the above and more water.
Yeah.
Great. Well, this has been fun. Ryan Awney is with Wyoming Wings and Water. Have I got that right? Yeah.
Wyoming
Wings and Waters with an S on the end. Orvis-endorsed pro guide out there. Mixed bag that most people don't even realize that wonderful state has. Great information, excellent country. I'll have to stop by there next time I'm in that area and catch up with you again. But in the meanwhile, thanks for all the helpful, useful tips, and thanks for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Well, after all that discussion about how we fuel our dogs, I'll be talking about that in our Handle It segment coming up in just a couple minutes. First off, let me get all excited about MidwayUSA.com, because they do carry just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. I think I mentioned socks in the last podcast, but you name it, they've got it out there. So if you're looking for something for your summer outdoor activities or dog training supplies or anything in the way of ammo, they've got it, and they are willing to ship it quickly. Yeah, they just won the BizRate Platinum Circle of Excellence Award based on customer feedback. MidwayUSA.com. They go above and beyond to provide exceptional service. And you can get some great service and great products from my friends at SageandBreaker.com. If you're looking for some sort of gun cleaning and gun care consumable, for example, they've got the firearms grease, they've got the CLP, they've got some other stuff in there, and most of it is, kind of the simplest version. Even I can figure out how to use it, and it works extremely well. Now, I encourage you to sign up for the email mailing list over at SageandBreaker.com because they've got new products in the pipeline, and you will learn about them before everybody else. Don't get caught like we all did on that last range bag production run. Sold out very quickly, and you don't want to be missing out on some of that. Learn more at SageandBreaker.com. Well, thank you all for your interest in that dog energy bar. And yes, I wish I could still stock that and provide it to you. But since I can't, I've been on the search for something else that is low volume, high fat, easy to carry, simple, and I found another one. So if you're looking for something that you want to give your dog during the hunt, that's actually going to help him perform at his peak, you might want to consider a couple things that I've experimented with in the last year or so. The first I've mentioned before, raw egg yolks. Get yourself a couple of those kind of kitty baby food squeeze tubes that you can refill, and put a couple egg yolks into one of those. Shake it up so that it's nice and liquidy. Carry that with you and dole it out to your dog over the course of the day. A little bit here, a little bit there. Puts that fat right back into their metabolism, and that is, of course, what they use for energy. It's not like us. We thrive in the field on carbohydrates. Dogs thrive on fat. So raw egg yolks. The other one, though, a lot simpler. It's a powder. It's from an outfit that you can learn more about at Bloom, BLOOM, Products, LLC.com. Bloom Products, LLC.com. It's called Extra Bloom Weight, and extra is, the way everybody's doing it now, capital XTRA, Extra Bloom Weight, and weight is WATE. It is basically powdered fat. Mix it with some water in the same baby food squeeze tube and squeeze that out to your dog over the course of the day. Instant energy, Extra Bloom Weight. Nope, they're not a sponsor. I just really think it works well, and it's easy to handle. That's our Handle It segment for this week, brought to you in part by ESPAmerica.com. Handle your hearing. Yeah, because hearing loss is cumulative and permanent. ESPAmerica.com. You can shop the variety of hearing protection devices. I've just got my new ones. They're digital. They're custom fitted, comfortable. They stay in even on a chukar hunt. No wind noise. Very handy and convenient. And I am taking care of what's left of my hearing. Learn more at ESPAmerica.com. And I use them every time I take a lesson at Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. MidValleyClays.com is where you learn more about all the shooting games that they have available to you in Western Oregon. And no matter where you live, take a look in their gun room. They have got a great relationship with many of the manufacturers and importers. So if you can't find what you're looking for there, well, then you probably are looking for something that you will never find. They've got sub gauges always in stock. They've got some rare and special editions, including a Satori Maple and a Satori Medallion. If they can't find it, you don't need it. Learn more by going to midvalleyclays.com. Well, thanks, Ryan Auney, for your help this week on the podcast. If you all would like to learn more about Ryan's operation, go to wyomingwingsandwaters.com. Thank you all for leaving a rating or a review and for telling one person about the Upland Nation podcast. Of course, I thank our sponsors every week because without them, we wouldn't be here. Sage and Breaker, Pointer Shotguns, Pro Plan Sport from Purina, ESPAmerica.com, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, TrulockChokes, and Midway, USA.com, and our good friends at LandTrust.com. Of course, if you want more information on any of these topics, there's probably something for you at FindBirdHuntingSpots.com. Updated on a regular basis. See what you can find there in the way of advice, places to go, you name it. Until I see you at the range, I hope to see you here next week at the very same time, same station. I'm Scott Linden. Thanks for listening to the Upland Nation podcast.